The phone slipped from my hand, crashing onto my desk. Through the speaker, I could still hear Marcus's laughter, his self-satisfaction over what he thought was the ultimate betrayal. My name is Diana Chin, and my husband just handed over my family's generational beach house to his 26-year-old mistress. You're awfully quiet, Marcus taunted, his voice dripping with smugness. No crying, no pleading. I thought I'd get more of a reaction from you, Di. I took a deep breath, gathering my composure. The house was mine, Marcus. It was my inheritance, built by my grandfather, and now it's in the hands of someone who will actually appreciate it. When was the last time you even set foot there? You're too consumed with your consulting work to enjoy anything. His words were almost laughable. My consulting work, the business he once dismissed as my cute little hobby, had been quietly funding my strategy to acquire his company's shares over the past year. You're right, I replied, keeping my voice steady. I have been quite busy. In fact, I should get going. I've got a shareholders meeting to prepare for tomorrow. A shareholders meeting? His voice sharpened. What are you talking about? Oh, didn't you know? I'm attending the Parker Industries annual meeting. See you there, darling. I ended the call before he could reply, relishing the moment. Marcus had always underestimated me, seeing me as nothing more than a pretty face at company events, a corporate wife to show off. He never bothered to learn what I truly did for a living. When we met 5 years ago, I was already a successful business consultant specializing in corporate restructuring. But Marcus, basking in his role as CEO of his family's company, saw only what he wanted to see, a woman who seemed impressed by his wealth. I should have seen the warning signs much earlier. The way he belittled my career, his constant need to remind me of his importance, how he would interrupt me in meetings to explain things I already knew. But I had been blinded by what I thought was love. The beach house had been my wake-up call. 6 months ago, I overheard him on the phone with Sarah, his young VP of marketing, planning weekend getaways to our family's beach house. The house where I spent every summer as a child, where my parents were married, where I learned to swim, surf, and dream. That was when I started digging into Parker Industries financials. What I uncovered was alarming. Dubious accounting practices, inflated projections, and a board of directors too intimidated by Marcus's family name to ask any questions. Marcus had no clue that while he was off vacationing with Sarah at my family's beach house, I was meeting with institutional investors, pointing out discrepancies in the company's reports, and suggesting that maybe new leadership was needed. I grabbed my phone and dialed my lawyer, Rachel Kim. He did it, I said when she picked up. He really transferred the beach house to her. I could hear Rachel typing in the background. Great, that's the last piece we needed. We flagged the property transfer documents for the SEC investigation. How did he sound? I asked. Smug. He still has no idea what's coming tomorrow. None of them do, Rachel assured me. The shareholders are on board. The board members who flipped are staying silent. Everything's set. I walked to my window, gazing out at the city skyline. The Parker Industries building loomed over the city, just as Marcus had wanted. He'd picked this penthouse specifically for the view. He liked seeing his family's empire towering above everything else. What about the other documents? I asked. Proof of his relationship with Sarah, the misuse of company funds. Everything's in place. We've got records of every business trip they took together, every gift he bought her using company funds, including the recent renovations to your beach house, which we'll be reclaiming. The transfer won't stand in court, especially with the timing of the SEC probe. I smiled, remembering how Marcus mocked me for always keeping detailed records. A good consultant is only as valuable as their documentation, I once told him. He brushed it off as one of my eccentric habits. One more thing, Rachel added. Sarah sold off her shares yesterday, just like you predicted. She dumped everything as soon as Marcus gave her the beach house. Of course she did, I replied. Marcus never understood that loyalty can't be bought, but disloyalty always comes with a price. I opened my laptop, going over the presentation for tomorrow's meeting one final time. The numbers were damning. Under Marcus's leadership, Parker Industries had been bleeding money, while he maintained a facade of success through creative accounting and his family's reputation. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. What game are you playing? You're not a shareholder. I didn't answer. Let him wonder. Let him waste the night trying to figure out how his wife, the one he had betrayed and dismissed, had become such a threat to his position. The truth was simple but devastating. I'd spent the last year quietly acquiring shares through various shell companies and investment groups. Marcus, so sure of his position as CEO, hadn't even noticed the shift in ownership. By the time he handed over my beach house, I controlled enough shares to force a vote of no confidence. Tomorrow, Marcus would learn that the wife he underestimated had become his greatest threat. The beach house was just the final straw, the last push needed to set my plan in motion. As I prepared for bed, my phone buzzed repeatedly. Marcus, probably piecing it all together at last. I turned it off, remembering something my grandfather once said about the beach house. The best view comes after the hardest climb. Tomorrow, I'd show Marcus just how high. I climbed while he wasn't paying attention. The day of the shareholders' meeting arrived, crisp and clear. I reached the Parker Industries building early, offering a polite nod to the security guards who recognized me only as Marcus's wife. Today, that would change. The boardroom filled quickly. I settled in the back, observing Marcus as he made his rounds, his charm effortless, handshakes, rehearsed laughter, the illusion of control. But today, his confidence seemed fragile. His gaze kept flicking toward me, a mix of confusion and frustration written all over his face. Then Sarah walked in, the last to arrive. She wore a designer dress that I knew all too well. It was one Marcus had bought for her using company funds, a fact I'd uncovered in the records. She froze for a moment when she saw me, but quickly recovered and took her place beside Marcus. "Before we start," Marcus said, standing at the head of the table, "I think it's important to address some unusual circumstances. It seems my wife has gotten the wrong idea about her role here today." "Actually," I interrupted, rising to my feet, "I believe it's you who's confused about roles, Marcus. Rachel, would you mind distributing the documents?" My lawyer, Rachel, began handing out folders containing damning evidence of Marcus's mismanagement, the affair with Sarah, the abuse of company funds, the misleading financial practices, and, most significantly, proof of my control over the majority of shares through various shell companies. "This is absurd," Marcus protested, flipping through the pages in disbelief. "These shares. It's impossible. I would have known about this." "Would you?" I asked, stepping forward. "You were too busy purchasing beach houses for your mistress to notice that your wife was quietly becoming your largest shareholder." The room fell silent. Board members scanned the documents, their expressions shifting from confusion to concern. Sarah, realizing the weight of what had just been uncovered, turned a ghostly shade. As the majority shareholder, I continued, "I propose an immediate vote of no confidence in Marcus Parker's leadership and call for his removal as CEO." "You can't do this." Marcus's voice, once commanding, now trembled with desperation. "This company is my family's legacy." "It was your family's legacy," I countered, "before you turned it into your personal piggy bank. The SEC is already very interested in your business trips with Sarah and your creative accounting. We have everything documented." One by one, hands began to rise in support of my motion. Marcus, now trembling, watched in horror as his empire crumbled. Sarah quietly slipped out, her resignation already in the works. "Why?" Marcus whispered, his voice breaking. "Because of the beach house," I laughed sharply, the sound echoing in the hushed room. "The beach house was just the tipping point. This is about every time you dismissed me, every time you treated me like a fool. While you were playing CEO and sugar daddy, I was building something you never bothered to notice, because you never bothered to look." The vote was unanimous. As security escorted Marcus from the building, I turned to address the board. Parker Industries has been living a lie of success for far too long. I've prepared a comprehensive restructuring plan to restore this company to genuine profitability. My team will begin working on it immediately. Later that day, as the board members trickled out, I sat alone in what used to be Marcus's office, my office now. My phone buzzed with a text from the real estate lawyer. The beach house transfer had been officially overturned. Another text followed. The SEC was eager to schedule a formal interview with Marcus. I pulled open my grandfather's old photo album, the one I always kept in my desk drawer. There he was, standing proud in front of the beach house he built with his own hands. "Success isn't about what you own," he used to tell me. "It's about what you build." I had certainly built something, Not just a thriving consulting business that funded my takeover of Parker Industries, but a strategy that exposed Marcus's flaws and rescued the company from his reckless leadership. My phone buzzed again. "Marcus, I underestimated you." "Yes," I typed back. "You did. The beach house keys are in your office box. Don't forget to return your company credentials." I closed the album, looking out over the city skyline. Marcus had picked this building for its grand view, wanting to look down on everything. I kept it because it reminded me that the best view always comes after the hardest climb. The next morning, I arrived early once again. Old habits die hard. But this time, when I stepped through the Parker Industries lobby, the staff greeted me with respect, not the polite indifference I'd grown used to. The security guard smiled. "Good morning, Miss Chen," he said, using my maiden name, the name I used to build my consulting career, the name I was reclaiming now that the divorce papers had been filed. "Good morning, Tom," I replied, stepping into the elevator. As it ascended to my office, I couldn't help but think of Marcus, probably waking up in some luxury hotel, finally understanding what he'd lost. Not just his power or his company, but someone who could have been a true partner if only he'd seen me as an equal. The beach house needed some work. Sarah's renovations had stripped away much of its character. But that was fine. Like my grandfather always said, the best things in life are the ones you rebuild yourself. I had a company to run now, and this time, I'd make sure it was built on something far stronger than illusions. I'd make it a legacy worth preserving. "Ready to get started?" Rachel asked, entering my office with the agenda for the day. I smiled, thinking about everyone who'd ever underestimated me. I've been ready for a long time. Let's build something real. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video. Stay stunned.